week since, well, not quite, because we came on Halloween, and boy, did Nettie have fun on Halloween. Today, we're going to be talking about woundedness. This is part 2 in the series of 2. There could be 3, but right now I'm only on 2. So last time we talked about wounds that others inflict on us and just what we need to do when we need to protect ourselves and to learn about wounds that others inflict on us and how it's usually about them and not about us. And if it is about us, what we need to do about that. But recently, I had a little opportunity to look at wounds that I inflict on myself. And I think we all do that. And sometimes we actually assign the blame onto ourselves when the wounds came from somewhere else. We are a society that tends to want to blame other things, other people, ourselves, for things that just might not be in the control of anybody. Or they are. It's part of our discernment. I'm going to use kind of an ugly graphic, and I'll probably need to put a warning on the screen because you're going to see a little something I don't usually show. Well, anyway, I'll explain it in a second. So here it is. Now, I said I don't really show this very much because it's embarrassing. So I wear longer dresses. And, I have kind of fat knees. But see these ugly scars? See these ugly scars? This one is actually 3 different surgeries. And the very first one wasn't done very well. Doesn't really matter. This is a good example. This is a good example of hiding behind our wounds, or hiding our wounds, or being ashamed of something that maybe we just didn't have anything to do with, but taking on old messages of shame that just don't serve us well. So that little demonstration with kind of an ugly old knee, and a knee that I don't show very much, and a knee that I've learned to become a little ashamed of, well, it was time for Nettie to talk about something that would help release some of my own shame. First of all, I don't need to be ashamed of a knee that really was a trooper in high school. I ran track. I ran it was a 50-yard and the 100-yard hurdles there. Now they use meters, which who knows what I'd do now, a meter or 2. Oh, anyway, and then I also was one of the individuals that was learning gymnastics at a very early stage when America wasn't really doing gymnastics. And I had 2 injuries that smashed my knee up. And so starting at a very young age, I was about 16, I've had trouble with that knee. I've had a total of 6 surgeries on that knee. And you know what? Instead of bragging, isn't it interesting how male athletes kind of show their scars and like, I earned this one. Well, not women, because you know why? We always had to wear dresses and we had to wear pantyhose. And, when the dresses were shorter, it was a little embarrassing, especially because the first doctor who did the Frankenstein stitches, and well, he didn't know what he was doing, or he was little. I forgive him, but I had 2 scars in which he went in to figure out what was wrong with my knee and took out all the cartilage in that knee. Well, you know what that does. I mean, I had 4 children, and gave birth to 4 children, and I've gone up and down in my weight. And that poor little knee, since the age of 24, was walking around on bone and hiding my pain and hiding my knee because it was so ugly. And oh, well, we won't go into that because that's just a little of the backstory. Why did I carry that shame? Why do we need to carry that shame? Carrying that shame is wounding ourselves. Now, we wound ourselves in lots of ways, like trying to fit into an 18-hour girdle for any longer than 18 seconds is wounding ourselves. And I don't do that anymore. I've got something called Sphinx. The Sphinx helps me stay in the same position all day long. Well, how do you know about these things, Jimmy? He says Spanx, but I don't buy those because they're too expensive. Anyway, we do things that wound ourselves all the time. Sometimes it's emotional too. We carry burdens. We take on shame that is not our own to take on. So the knee is a simple example, but honestly, at my age, when I've lived with it all these years, is silly. It kept me from wearing shorts in the summer and sundresses above my knee that, I wouldn't do it at my age now anyway, just because you don't need to be wounded by looking at those suckers. But, it's the stories we tell ourselves. So I have a really, really important story that just happened. You'll know why Nettie's doing what she's doing now, because it's never too late to learn. I learned a lesson a few months ago that opened my eyes and healed so much of my old woundedness because I reacted to an incident from old wounds. So I was so lucky that I, along with 9 other wonderful women from around the country and the world, were included in a book that is going to go on sale November 11th. I wrote 3 stories, and they all were very dear to me because they're all true stories about me. They're just devotionals, and they're very short. But one of the stories was so dear to me, and it's a topic that I talk about every year at Christmas because it's about 2 heroes of mine. Now, first I should tell you that saying yes to writing in this book was a huge step for me. I've been nudged to write. I've been nudged to talk to you, to bring some love into the world. And both of them kind of happened at the same time. Becoming Nettie and talking to everybody in the world, as many as I can, about being first responders in love, coincided with being called to finally pick up the pen and write and get some stories out that will help others too. So I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic because right around the time Nettie went live and launched, the first Kindle book came out. But I didn't know it was just the draft. So I bought it. And I was reading it. And of course, I was a little vain because I went to my stories first because, it was exciting. And there, on the page, in a story about Mary and Joseph, my heroes, 2 people who put their own lives aside to do something in the world that nobody else had done. Mary was going to carry the gospel. And Joseph said, okay. And whatever, they were selfless in choosing that. And it doesn't matter if you yet believe, that's the point, is sometimes we step out on the water because of our deep abiding beliefs. Whatever your belief is, if you're doing it passionately and with faith, it's so important. But there on the page, in the story that was from my heart, was something that said, instead of Mary and Joseph so selflessly did, it read, Mary and Joseph so selfishly did. I was devastated. And pretty soon, as soon as I became in that vulnerable place, instead of understanding, well, why would you be devastated? Because, people are going to read it the right way. Well, maybe some pride, maybe lack of humility. I don't think so. That's what I was being told by my inner voices of shame, that it wasn't okay for me to be celebrating a victory in my life. That was just the vulnerable place for the old messages to come along and say, you're not good enough, Nettie. Well, it was 2 days before I found out that it was not the final book. It was one to be adjusted and tweaked. Yet, on my Kindle will always live that first draft because I bought it that way. And I'm going to leave it that way. I am. Because Fred, he can buy it on his Kindle and share it with me. It's right now. And so immediately I knew this was a message that we need to hear, that I needed to learn. And although it still bothered me, I was relieved because our dear leader, Kim, said, don't worry, it's going to come out okay. So I worked through that. And of course, I'm still just doing this video now. And it's because it's taken this long to really sit in discernment and say, where else are you doing that? And I'm going to ask you, where else are you giving yourself messages that maybe somebody else told you before? But where did these messages come from that says we cannot celebrate our achievements, especially when they come from our heart and we are in good faith trying to spread a word of love? So just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to order some author copies to give out and to sell. And then we were given 5 free copies for our work. And I opened that box so excited because here was going to be the published print book. And my mistake would be corrected. No. It came with the correction not made. I really did wonder if I should let our leader know, because she was so sad that it happened to begin with, and even knowing it wasn't really her fault because I had ordered it that way. But now, weeks later, and something like 19 tries for her to upload that, they printed the one with the mistake in it. So again, I told her, but I was also hit again with the messages. I have to admit it. They were there. It's like, okay, you were wrong. You were wrong, Nettie, because really, you don't deserve this. The mistake's out there, so why don't you just give it up? Well, you should know Nettie better by now. So the truth is, the first books have a mistake, and not just mine. We found others. And it's not our leader's fault. It's just some sort of, technological, what do you call it, kung fu? snafu, some sort of technological snafu that happens in the world. So the message is right now, so Nettie, what are you going to do about it? And that's why Nettie decided to show you her knee. Those wounds are going to always happen. They just are. And there's going to be scars from it. But you know, showing somebody your scars can help them heal. Being willing to talk about how you got those scars. You don't have to do it on YouTube like Nettie, but you probably have friends that you can see them suffering from, what do you call that? Lashing themselves for something that they had no control over, or for something they've been forgiven for. That's another place to really think about. If you have done something wrong, and you beat yourself up about it over and over again, maybe you need to apologize to somebody so that it can be let go. Most likely, when we have a conscience and a heart, we hold on to things we've said to other people longer than they do. Either way, even if you've already apologized, do it one more time. And then let it go. And you can ask your God for forgiveness and know that if you don't take moments like this to learn, you're going to keep getting moments like this over and over again. So I'm going to say, love yourself enough to forgive yourself, to stop when you're so devastated over something that you think you have done, and figure it out. Or talk to somebody. I did talk to my spiritual directors about this. I talked to my pastors about this, and I talked to Fred about this. It's important that something that hits us so hard and doesn't ring quite true as being something we've done really wrong, then it's not coming from a place of love. All right. That's Woundedness Part 2. I'm sure there's going to be a 3. If you've been wounded, if you have something to talk about, don't hesitate to email Nettie. It's nettiefitzenpitley@gmail.com. We can talk about it in private, or you know what? I can do a video about it. Right, Jimmy? Yes, Jimmy's kind of like, he loves these, but he really likes it when I'm not so somber. But it's important that we are first responders in love, and you better learn to respond to yourself in love. That's the only way you can really reach out to others, if you come from a soft, warm place of love yourself. Okay, don't be crappy, be happy, because you know what? Nettie loves you, wounds and all. Bye-bye. Oh, you know the ticket. Remember to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thank you.